Welcome. It's just gone 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, the 16th of April, and you're watching episode 167 of Regional Wrap. Regional Wrap providing an insight on the issues affecting regional Australia and giving a voice to regional residents. My name is Bill Bates, and joining me on this episode, Independents. What have they got to offer? Is my guest Norman Miller, independent for Leichhardt. Norman is married and has lived in Cairns for over 50 years. He is an Aboriginal author, artist and businessman. Norman owns and operates the Mungambana Reef and Forest Aboriginal Art Gallery, which has endured through the fickle tourist economy of Cairns for the past 30 years. In 2016, Norman received the Independent Publishers Book Award Bronze Medal for his book Reef and Rainforest, an Aboriginal voice through art and story. It was presented in Chicago. He was also included in the Queensland's Who's Who book of 2008. Norman is a pastor and conference host and is a sought-after speaker in Australia and overseas, speaking in the US, UK, Canada, New Zealand, Pacific Islands, Israel, Africa and Singapore. He is also the co-founder of the Centre for International Reconciliation and Peace and Indigenous Friends of Israel International. Welcome, Norman.
Thank you, Bill. And Bill, it's wonderful to be on tonight, and to all your listeners there as well. I just really appreciate the invitation for myself in the busyness of things that's been happening in the last few weeks. Also, Bill, I just want to thank you for your personal meetings that we've had just recently in the gallery, which is in 33 Lake Street, Cairns. I've been there now for 6 years, and so it's a wonderful place that I have the access to that area, and it was wonderful to catch you in person, Bill. And I think that really a lot of things just had taken off, and I think it was just important to connect up there with you, and also having the invitation here tonight. So it's special.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Norman. Thanks for that. Just starting off, you were born on the tablelands. Can you give us a bit of an idea of your childhood and sort of your pathway to becoming an artist, an author, and sort of a gallery owner, and sort of what inspired you on the way to get to the business position you are today?
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. From small beginnings, as they say, from little things, big things grow. And Bill, for myself, it was always the importance of mum and dad and the respect that they, gave to each one of the children. I come from a family of a brother, an older brother, and 4 sisters. And I was born in the Atherton Tablelands, but the interesting thing is I grew up right on country, because Atherton is country there to myself. I come from 3 of the tribes, Bill. One of them is Wodjinbara Yidinji. The other 2 tribes is Durable and also Barbaram. And a lot of that areas would cover the Atherton Tablelands there as well, into Mariba, and also from the Durable tribe that goes right down to even Upper Tully. I grew up in even though I was born in Atherton, but most of my childhood, even going to school at grade 1 in Herberton. And I just remember those days there where we used to just, our home, mum and dad worked very, very hard. And to where we are, to where I am today, Bill, it's one of those things they say, the importance of honoring your mother and your father. And mum and dad were such, such a wonderful father, such a beautiful mum, and they brought us up in the right ways. And we they worked hard and they showed us, but they also showed us respect. They gave us an education. Mum and Dad at the time, it was known within Queensland that there were different there were different things within this Queensland school. Mum and Dad only went to grade 4, and so they didn't go on to any further than that, their education. But it never stopped them, and they taught those values. As I said, Dad worked very, very hard, and Mum worked very, very hard. And we just grew up where our home was like an old gated iron shed. But we grew up, if I say to you, Starlight Hotel, that was where we slept under the stars around campfires. Mum and Dad would just bawl the billy. And when you're in that bush life, you can hear the kookaburras, you can hear the parrots. So I had the natural wildlife and that around me. I had pets and that around me, and I vividly remembered the parrots and that how colourful they were in that type of background. It certainly brought a lot of colour. With the school when we would be living out at Wandakla. And there were times, Bill, that we missed the bus. So if we missed the bus going to the school, we had to walk. And so I knew what it was like, walk about barefoot from Wandakla into the Herberton school. And there was Wandakla Herberton brought up a lot of good memories for myself and the families. And so Mum and Dad just, they just were just so, when I look at it now to where I am, they put a roof over our head, they put food on the table, and we just everything that Mum and Dad did for us, we just loved them. We just loved them so much, and we just that respect. But where we are today, it's a wonderful journey and actually a wonderful testimony.
I think that's one of the big things is family in regards to that start off in life of setting your values and that. And it does come normally with a stable home with mum and dad and things like that. And especially in a strong personal relationship between two people caring for each other, they generally create an environment that actually cares for their children. And I think, like most parents in those sort of situations, they'd do anything for their kids, but their prime interest is to make a better life for for their children to have a better life than they did. And I think that's what you're sort of alluding to, is that no matter the hardships your parents went through, they're always looking to ensure their children had the opportunity to go further.
Absolutely. And there was a from that time there of from Herberton, Dad made the travel and the family made the travel down to Innisfail, a place called South Johnston. And when the family moved, I then, from grade 1, I went to South Johnston, and I finished off a lot of my schooling there at South Johnston with my brothers and sisters. Dad and Mum worked on the cane farm. I mean, it wasn't with the harvesters and all those things around then. Mum and Dad were out in the cane fields and just using the old cane knife, Bill, and they were just cutting it down. And you think of that work and the hard labor. And when as I said, it always comes back to when I look at where I am, what Mum and Dad did for us, how they worked so hard. They just gave us that education. They just sowed so much. And even in ourselves, when we became adults, we just gave back to that much to Mum and Dad because we just honored them and loved them. So from that time there in South Johnston, where Dad was also working in the hospital in Innisfail. And then, I was probably around about in grade 4, Bill, when we left Innisfail. So when I came into Cairns, I was around about the age of 9 because we made the trip from Innisfail, South Johnston to Cairns. And so I in the family, my brother, and he finished his high schooling there in Innisfail, and there's a name of the Slade family that Brucey Slade and Darcy Slade. They were painters, and I remember when my brother Thomas he was doing some painting. They were doing actually some painting in Herberton, painting houses and schools and things like that. Anyhow, Bruce Darcy Slade said to my brother, he said, "Look, when you finish high school," he said, "I'm going to give you an apprentice." And that apprenticeship was opened up for my brother Thomas here in Cairns. So the family made way. Dad went on to different areas of work. He worked within government, being reminded of the education that they only went to school in grade 4. And it's just amazing. It's like a miracle, Bill, to where mum and dad came through and how they brought us through. So all my brothers and sisters, we did our schooling here in Cairns. I went to Cairns West. I went to Trinity Bay, but not long. I didn't go all the way through to grade 12 when we made that trip to Cairns, Bill. I only did grade 10, and from that, you would remember a family by the name of Lou Piccone, very well known
Yeah,
identities in Cairns, and
grocer.
Harold Cook. So it was then the supermarket franchise. They started this place there in Mayor Street. And it was over the holidays, the school holidays, where I finished grade 10. And I thought, no, um, I'm not going to go back and finish 11 and 12. I stayed within that job working for Lou Piccone and Harold Cook. And so that was part of my starting the work here, and I just stayed with them for many years. And you look how they have certainly branched out to where they are now into IGA. So a lot of my work, not only from the Innisfail South Johnston's, believe me, Bill, I was working on the a tea plantation in Innisfail for a tea farm called Narada Tea Plantation. So that was right back then. And then I made as I said, into the supermarkets here, working for Harold and Lou Piccone. And then I went on. I went on to working. After some time there, I went on to working with Coles and Woolworths. I was a produce manager and for Coles and Woolworths here in Cairns, and then I got shifted into the into Mareeba and worked for firms in that there. So why am I saying this? Because a lot of my background, Bill, was not only the education that mum and dad gave us, but also that good work ethics. And so I was able to carry on and being in really real estate to where, sorry, in the retailing industry to where even I am today. And it's along the journey. It's been that journey, but to where I am, I'm so grateful and thankful for mum and dad for the achievements that they've planted so deep into not only my heart but into my brothers and sisters.
So how did you move on to becoming an artist and author? What did you trip over to make that happen?
Well, yeah, as I said, I worked the Malik family. So I'm saying from Cook and Piccone and then to the Malik family, they were well known a family identity here in Cairns still. And Peter Malik, he had a shop called Stag's Menswear that I worked with Stag's Menswear. But after this, Bill, I wanted a little bit of a change. And I thought, look, retailing from produce. Uh, the interesting thing, when I was a produce manager and when I worked for the supermarket there in Mareeba, Bill, one of the things that I wanted to do is to look after the farmers. And I would go out to some of the farmers out at Matilba, out in places there like that, a well-known family name by the name of Malabertis. And I used to make sure that Coles would buy not only the watermelons, but get the rock melons and that from these places, buying it direct from the locals. So I've had that history of myself of working with families that are just so strongly founded, and the principles and importantly their businesses to where they are now, from big IGA here now, from Lou and Harold Piccone, to what they sow on. From those little things, big things grow. And as said to Malik family, where I was selling clothes. And so after that, I wanted this change. And so, Bill, I went to do a arts diploma through the Cairns TAFE. And that artistic background was always there. I always used to do, believe it or not, Bill, I was doing right back then Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse's. I was doing Walt Disney type sketches and characters, even Porky Pig and those ones. And I still kept Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, some of the sketches, even some of the Phantom books that I would sketch. And so it took me from that time, from that journey, even painting, even when you would burn a over a campfire, Bill, and you get that sort of like that coal. I would be like doing my own rock art on rocks. So it started right back then, and then I thought, look, I want to get serious, and that's the way I went. I went to the Cairns TAFE, and I did my diploma through the arts. And one of the things after that of coming through the arts and different mediums that I was working with, Bill, it coming from that retailing background, as I mentioned, from working in retailing shops and Malik family and Lou and Harold Coney, it gave me those skills. It gave me those to be able to think, okay, well, I've got the art, but also need, once I come out of this TAFE system, I need to be able to go out and add those business skills there to it, which I was able to take on. And so you can just see from that journey, from the TAFE journey, I got a diploma through the arts. There was exhibitions that I had from other artists that was coming in, certainly, a lot of places, from communities within the Cape. And so after that time there, Bill, I went on, and to where I am, I met a beautiful wife by the name of Barbara Miller. We got married, and 34 years that we've been married there for, and we just keep falling in love. And just there's a lot of things, Bill, in my journey that to where I am there now, and it's been good. There's been the journey. There's been the hard times, but coming through those journeys to where I am, and it's made me certainly I've learned a lot of things on the way, where from my failures to where I am today, and to bring and to adapt those good things to where I am.
In regards to being a pastor and conference host, how did you make that journey as well?
Yeah, well, growing up as mum and dad taught us not only the respect and all those things, but there was my Christian faith that mum brought me along. My grandmother, from the old times of Sunday school, and so I grew up along the way from the small beginnings like Herberton, and then to where I am then now. It's because of of good Christian values that mum and dad instilled into me, and to where I am there now. My wife and I have been we've actually been pastoring now for 30 years ourselves. So that's how long the business has been going for, Bill. And we've done a lot of traveling there as well. Been over to Israel 12 times ourselves. And when we do, we take groups and teams and that over. There are many times that we did conferences within not only overseas places in Malaysia, but we also did a lot of our conferences in Parliament House, right in the old Parliament type theatre. And we had international speakers that we would bring in from, different parts of the world. And I remember this one conference, Bill, that we had here in Cairns in 2006. It was probably one of the biggest conferences that we did at the showgrounds. The showgrounds was like you could call it like a tent city, and we had over 3,000 that gathered for this conference in the at the showgrounds, the Cairns showgrounds, and they came from all parts of the world. But the interestingly thing there, Bill, is that we needed a miracle, and we prayed for miracles and things because we're someone that has that Christian faith, and it's like when we do things, when we're called to do things, whether it's Parliament House, because we know that it's a cost factor, and you think, well, we haven't budgeted for what we're called to do, but we stepped out in faith, and still today, I think that is very true to where I am and where Barbara is today. So there are times that I remember going to a place in Turkey, Bill, and we left and into Israel. I remember we left Australia with only $100 between us, and we knowing we were going to be away for about 5-6 weeks, and we thought, how is this going to happen? But a miracle was provided for that, and so we do believe in miracles, and so a miracle was provided for the 2006 to be able to meet all those costs, because I remember that 2006 bill that when it was like I've got a high AS van, and I'm still driving my high AS van 30 years. That's how old my van is. And I remember when the 2006, I would go out to the airport and I would pick up, there was families that would say, oh, we're coming in from the Solomon Islands, or we're coming in for Papua New Guinea. That conference at the showgrounds, there was over 700 people that was coming from Papua New Guinea alone. And I remember Barbara saying, because we had a very, very small team, but Barbara said she had to even ring the airlines to say, hey, you need to get more flights coming into Cairns, because there's a big gathering that's coming out of Papua New Guinea, and they want to come to this conference here in Cairns. And so Barbara got on the phone and said, hey, look, increase your flights. And so that's what happened. But not only were the flights had to be increased, Barbara was there. I remember she had to go and write visas for all these people that was coming in, because they would have been able to come from those nations without visas. So you can think of Barbara sitting at the table and in front of a computer and saying, oh, this person, yes, got to tick the box, got to write all these visas for them. So that happened. A miracle happened, Bill. And I remember that 2006 conference that even the Prime Minister from Vanuatu at that time, Edward Natapai, he was the Prime Minister of Vanuatu. Him and his wife came out there for it. And believe it or not, Bill, even Barnaby Joyce was at our conference. And that was very, very interesting. When we had a breakfast, and when the Prime Minister from Vanuatu and his wife came out.
Well, he would have been a senator then.
Sorry?
Barnaby would have been a senator then, I think.
He was,
Wouldn't he?
and I tell you what, when he came to the conference, we had a breakfast at Cairns, actually the Cairns Central, and we put on a breakfast outside of this restaurant. The names just escaped me, but it was right there in Cairns Central. And we had all these delegates from overseas, and Barnaby was there. I remember that time having my nephew Daryl, and he played the didgeridoo, and then Barnaby got up and he shared a few things there as well. And I tell you what, he was certainly away from politics. He was certainly giving his view of his Christian faith and background, and so it was very, very uplifting. And even today, we've got those videos there of Barnaby. I remember the times when I went down to Canberra, and I said, Barnaby, remember the conference that you came to in Cairns. And he says, yes, I remember them very well. But I don't think he remembers that I still got those videos here that's that's around. And but when I do go to Canberra and we do catch up with people like Bob Catter, wonderful people like Bob Catter, and also Barnaby Joyce. And so, those discussions have yeah, they've been very fruitful. So the times, and even where we are then now, not only with the gallery and the 30 years of that being in business, Bill, but also of the ministry of what we do.
I suppose there's the sort of connection in regards to through what you're doing there, you actually do have to engage with politicians. So you've seen politicians, you know what they're like. So why do you want to become one?
Oh, interestingly, Bill, it's been something on that back burner for a while, and I think it's just been reignited. And we'll discuss some things there that it's just like uh, those times around the campfire, and something within myself is beginning to just stir and reignite. And you could just say like. I'm starting to smell the billy boiling on the stove. I can, even now when I'm talking to you, I can smell those gum trees. I can smell when I put a piece of bread on a stick and over a campfire and seeing it burn. Quite differently to being in the house and when we want to make some toast, we go and throw it in the toaster. But that something within myself, Bill, is stirring again. My concerns is why I thought, it was 2007 when I stood, Bill, and that was 18 years ago. I stood as an independent right back then, and I remember when I stood. Look, it's very personal from what I'm going to just share, Bill, but I think it's important. I only gave myself about 3 weeks for that election, and in that time, I lost my father. And my father was a well-known. He was very identified very well for his work and work ethics within in Cairns. And I lost my father in that 2007 election. So it only gave me a couple of weeks, virtually two, and I still did. No, Dad would have wanted me to finish that election. It was a time there where Warren Ince didn't stand that year in 2007, and Labor had got in. Kevin '07, that was the theme right back then. Kevin Rudd, he was like it was like there was just a big wave, and Kevin '07 theme just the people in Australia just caught it, and the people there of Leichhardt and other places throughout this great nation, they caught it. That seat there of was won by Labor, and even to this day, it was only won because of Kevin Rudd of the influence that he gave for that. So after the 2007 bill, I I stepped away for a bit, and then not becoming a member of any party, my wife and we did join the Labor Party. We were probably with the Labor Party maybe about 4 years after that 2007 election. And I know that one of the promises that Kevin Rudd said that was in regard to the stolen generation. He said that if elected, that he would bring forth the apology to the stolen generation. And so that was, I remember that very well in 2008 because I was invited because of my grandfather, Thomas Miller, who was taken away at the age of 4 himself. And I remember Dad giving me this red tie, and he said, "Son, I want you to have this tie before he passed." I didn't understand it, but then I knew that Dad wanted me to wear that tie to the 2008 apology, which was in Parliament House. There are many people that travel from the far north to be at that And Bill, in what happened was it was bipartisan, and that was the most important thing, where Kevin Rudd and the opposition leader at that time, um, that they came together and in a bipartisan way. And you could just see not only were I was in Parliament House with many of the elders that travelled for that, but on the lawns of Parliament, when the apology was said, and people on were out on the lawns of Parliament, but right through the whole nation, right through schools and places, that there was like this wave of reconciliation, this this move that people were just crying and tears of just flowing to see this happen. When that apology came forth, and I remember Kevin Rudd saying, and Brendan Nelson, the opposition, said, "Look, we are sorry." What a lot of people and would not have known that while I was there, because reconciliation is a two-way thing. And I said, look, we forgive you. I forgive you from my heart, Bill. I'm sitting right there in Parliament House. I said, look, I forgive you for what has happened, because that's the importance of seeing healing take place. And I remember that time as Bill, that I put together a 2 meter by 2 meter painting, and I believe it was around about 2010 that I delivered this 2 meter by 2 meter painting. And in that painting, I had like a very abstracty of Parliament House. My little nieces and nephews, they were only about 1 and 3, 1 to 3 at that at ages at that time. I had their hands, like sometimes when you go and you see Aboriginal art, and you see where there's sort of like the hand and spraying effects of hands on rock art, that type of thing. My little niece and nephew, their hands was on that, and it brought, as I said, that they would remember their great grandfather, but also their grandfather, my dad, for those things that for what took place. And I believe that was very, very impacting, even to this day. I remember it very, very well. But it was in that 2010 that that I presented a 2 meter by 2 meter painting to Kevin Rudd. I took it down. Barbara and I personally took it down, and I presented it to him. So it was about a $5,000 to $10,000 painting, bill that I gifted to Kevin Rudd for that time.
So where's the painting now? Because it should be hanging somewhere in the public domain.
Well, that's the big question, because when I've been down there, Bill, I have not seen that painting. Um, I'm not sure that if if Kevin Rudd had taken it to the States, or is
No,
it any,
they're not supposed to
or
keep
is that at
gifts.
home in Queensland somewhere? To this day, I don't know.
I'll
But
have to ask him.
yes.
Okay. Just moving on. Um, the work as an independent. I mean, it's all up to you. Can you get people a bit of idea of the process you have to run through in regards to, um, and really, do you think in hindsight you should have started a year or two ago, or what do you recommend for people who are going to go as independents? When should they start? Um, you know, getting all their ducks in a row.
Bill, it is hard, but someone like myself I felt that, because of my Christian faith, I felt that this was the right thing, because where our nation was at crossroads. And I'm starting to see even more and more, like yourself and many of your listeners. Um, we're seeing like the cost of living, we're seeing petrol prices, we're seeing food prices, we're seeing families and businesses and other things go bust, but also to the point there where families and breakdown in marriages. Um, so, it really stirred my heart. And getting back to that, something ignited within me, Bill, too, that I wanted to make this stand because I love this nation of Australia. I love it so much. I love this area of where I live in Cairns. I think Cairns is a beautiful city, and I always sell it as a city in a reef and rainforest. And someone as an independent, like myself, I I believe on what I'm standing for. I believe without doubt that this for me is the right thing to do. And if I could really, importantly sway those voters that they, because the independents, I could certainly hold a balance of power if I'm elected, but also the loyalty and the commitment that I give to the people of Leichhardt, and that for me is so important. And I want to be able to bring the good legislation and see reverse, because what we're seeing is the way that the way that our economy is. We're in debt, Bill, and there's a lot of people that, like myself, no doubt would love to make stands. And I'm someone that I started to see a lot of things happen around me, and I thought, no, I've got to get out there and I've got to be the voice there for it. So as an independent, Bill, it is hard. I had to come up with 100 people to sign a piece of paper before I could take it into the AEC, which only happened in the last couple of weeks. And I had to come up with $2,000 to be able to also nominate. So you could say that where your major parties had the run. I think from what I heard from the Labor guy that he's been already 10 months there in it, and I think that someone like when Warren made the decision to step away from the seat, there was someone that was that was in place, so they were able to be in office and certainly everything was just being able to be brought forward and say, oh, well, this is what you've got to do. But when you're standing as an independent, you don't have, it's just like things are just, it's hard. You've got to go out and do your research where for your major parties, they would have people there. Okay, well, what information there that you need? It's all there. It's presented right there in front of them. And because of that platform of your major parties, whether it's Liberal or Labor or any other party, they have certain platforms that they would speak to. You've got to say this, you've got to say that. But I think that's why it is. I can speak as someone that's an independent, but importantly, be the voice for the seat of Leichhardt. I still think it's winnable. It's like I don't go from someone that played rugby league in my background, Bill. I never ever went onto a field and thinking I was going to lose. The playing field is not the same. I think in future, or not too far in the future, that they may need to look at a cap and say, okay, well, every major party, every other party within Australia, that there maybe should be something like a $10,000 cap. I mean,
for
this
each
would really
electorate.
push some buttons, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Um, I suppose the other thing is not only have they got their platforms already laid out, the party's got like whether it's Liberal, Labor, Greens, or even the Katters and One Nation. I mean, they've got years of policy development behind them, and the other thing, especially the two majors. They also come out and go. First thing they go into a campaign and they start throwing the money around. $1 billion on this and a few $1 million on that, and sort of start the old pork barreling type thing. Uh, it's a little bit strange, but in regards to, I'm just concerned in regards to what I've heard from a lot of the candidates and what they're talking about, I want to fix this up, I want to do that. In a lot of instances, what they're talking about has nothing to do with the federal government's responsibility. $1 million for muddies or $2 million for some bypass. That's not the remit of the federal government. The federal government has got a set of responsibilities, and that includes defence, biosecurity, immigration, and things like that. Yes, they can have a general yak of what their party's doing on those fronts, but it shouldn't get down to a bidding war in regards to a toilet block for here and a playground for there in regards to the federal election. So how do you see this sort of spending attitude that the two majors come out and sort of start the conversation rather than sort of standing on the record and sticking to the actual policies that they should be sticking to in regards to what the federal government's responsibility is?
Yeah, it's Bill. Look, when you see the money being splashed here and there, um, and then right, in my mind, and I'm sure that every voter like yourself and others be thinking, well, how can they seriously talk about the cost of living when they just go willy-nilly pork barrel? Oh well, we'll just buy this, seat, and that's just what's happening. I can't compete. So when I'm asked certain questions, I can't say, oh well, I'm going to give you $1 million for this or for that. I will meet the response of muddies like you had mentioned. I'll meet that response. But Bill, knowing that the promises, you only have to look at and think, well, okay, let's get back to reality here. The Albanese government, and they need to be reminded again, they promised $275 for the electricity. And here, how if they, and that's a promise that they said they can't keep that promise. So how on earth will they, the promises that they come up with of throwing money here and there, and I think a lot of it is a lot of band-aid solutions and things like that. I personally don't think um, those the money that they're throwing out. I seriously think those commitments will not be met. So, Bill, it is hard. I drive around and I think, well, okay, I'm able to go and buy some core flutes and other things and that there but the interesting thing there is when you're driving around, you're seeing all these other billboards. It's not only the money that's thrown into election, but what's thrown also into the candidates. And, you know, especially from an independent like myself, it makes it so hard. But I'm fighting the good fight. I believe that, I want to stand to make a difference. I want to just, I think it's when we see these things, I think there needs to be rein and wasteful government spending there as well. And so when I look at a lot of these things of how I would seriously look at the fixing the cost of living, I think we need to, you know, building more affordable houses and other things and that they're like that. Look, Bill, when they did the referendum, and I say it's a failed referendum, because when you look at as Australia, it just brought a divide in that itself. That should never have, it should never have happened. I right back there in 2012, I campaigned for removing the discrimination in the Constitution, which I'm very thankful of Warren Entsch at that time. That he also tabled it in Parliament there for me. And but when we saw what happened, there was about something like $450 million that was thrown at this referendum. For what, Bill? I think something there like that could have been better usage for a community. I know what I could have done with it, making sure that a community is in a healthy, um, not only being in a healthy environment, but the whole transformation and things like that. I think there's better things that we need to um, look at. A couple of weeks back, Bill, I had a couple from Woodville that got in contact with me, and they said to me, "Look, we don't even have a dialysis unit in Woodville." And it was very, very concerning because the lady had to wait 2 years to be able to come from that community of Woodville to be able to be admitted into Cairns. So there's things that when you look at how government is spending willy-nilly, and then you think, hey, a lot of things here, Bill, are just not right. You begin to just shake your head.
But I think the other thing is with independence, you can't promise to do this and you can't promise to do this, that in particular, in most particular areas. But what your job is to do is A, get your 5 cents in regards to in your opportunities you have to talk in Parliament. And the other thing is, hopefully, there's some need for independence in the discussion for getting legislation through to put some sort of influence onto that legislation so it's better legislation or it doesn't get through. That's the main job for independence, I think, in regards to when they get it down into the Parliament. But the other thing is too, that someone famously said, and I think maybe Terry McCann just repeated it, but there is no problem that hasn't actually been, if it hasn't been caused by government, it's been made worse by government. And that's all I see in regards to, like, we've got a problem with housing, but they come up with schemes, both sides of the political spectrum. They're just adding more problems to the housing market rather than solve them. They're going to give money to a certain group of people who can then spend more which will increase the price of houses and disadvantage the people who didn't get that gift. So that sort of thing is this compounding of a problem rather than go back and fix what was the root of the problem is, like, the first thing in regards to housing has to be immigration. I mean, just the sheer numbers of people coming into Australia. So that has to be one thing that sort of, starts to correct the situation. Other things that have made houses much more expensive is the change to change the standards. Like now you've got to have a 7-star energy rating house. So that costs about $40,000 more than a standard house without those sort of conditions. Then they've brought out another package. It costs about adds $20,000 to a new house in regards to every house has got to be able to cater for the disabled. So the passageways have to be wider, the doors supposed to be wider, and different types of bathroom. But not everyone in Australia is disabled, but every house has to be built. So for a disabled person, I mean, it's sort of that they don't seem to realise the problems that they're creating when they add these little changes.
Yes, certainly, the housing crisis, the homelessness, these are things that Bill, that I, I would like, even on a local level, I would like to see our councils, our state governments, and that federally there as well, walking the streets and seeing people that are homelessness there on the streets, people that's going through mental health and all those other issues. These people should not be on the streets. They should be looked after. They should be maintained. They should be cared for. But look, a couple of things that I want to bring, and I think it is breaking news, the bill that it's something that I have been campaigning for probably in the last 10 years. But one of the things that I want to look at very closely, and I think it needs to be those discussions, as I said, reigniting those discussions, reigniting those debates. I have for some time now wanting to see this seat of Leichhardt. I know, someone that knows the history of, named after the explorer, uh, naturalist Ludwig Leichhardt. But I've been for some time there now wanting to see this seat of Leichhardt changed to Mabo Water. You might think, why? And I think it's to honour a Torres Strait Islander and an Aboriginal pioneers of native title, and the recognition that that Australia was not terra nullius or an empty land when settled by Britain. And John Corder is the Mabo of the mainland for his role in the Wick case. So, Bill, it's been something that I'm throwing out there, and it's been something that needs to um, have those discussions. I think when I look at not only Mabo and Quarter for the extraordinary things that they have done, and when the other seat that I'm also looking at is the Queensland seat of Cook. You know, I'm looking at seeing having that discussions and debate, seeing the seat of Cook change to the name of Durrell. Eric Durrell was a fairly well-known Indigenous person, and he was actually elected in the Queensland Parliament. And we know that right throughout in parts of us, there's Neville Bonner, whom we know that was in the federal seat of government. We know that there has been throughout Australia, we have like seats of Bennelong that was named after very well known Indigenous leaders and pioneers in their time. We know that the seat of Batman, I think it's John Batman,
Yeah,
BAT in Melbourne. We know that that was recently changed to the seat of Cooper. Now, William Cooper was an Indigenous man from the Yorta Yorta tribe. And so these are discussions I actually shared in the ABC there this morning. So I don't know what take it's going to have, but I'm putting out a press release that to see this seat of Leichhardt change, new name change. The other reasons, Bill, is that, I remember, as I said, going back to where I grew up in Wandekla, Herberton, there was a place, and this creek was called, and it's something that I don't like to say, but the creek was called Nigger Creek, and you know, when my brothers and sisters, when we would go past there, even the family, and we would go past that creek, and oh, there's Nigger Creek. But the Queensland government over probably nearly well over 10 years. I remember Warren Pitt, when I had the gallery there in the city, I was in Andrejic's Arcade, a place, Andrejic family, also a known identity in Cairns. Warren came through and he said, we're going to change the name of Nigger Creek. At the time, I didn't know, but I'm glad they changed it to Wandekla. And so I think that, even now that I'm discussing about Mabo and Quarter, also as I'm speaking about the seat of Cook changed to Durrell. Eric Durrell, Barbara was the CEO with the Aboriginal Coordinating Council at the time, and she worked very, very closely with Eric Durrell. Even my father worked very, very close closely with Eric Durrell. So I think we need to have those discussions. And the interesting thing there, Bill, is that the Durrell family went to a school here in Cairns called Cairns West, just only up the road there to me. And out of that little school, there was only a handful of Indigenous children like myself and Eric's children that was at that school. But now you see that school of Cairns West here and other schools now they've just just grown. There was only a handful of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islands children. Now it's just grown. And I think one of the things that would inspire a generation would to, how many would be in their history now would be talking about Ludwig Leichhardt. How many I know that you can't go and throw history books. History is history. We had the Captain Cook statue here on Sheridan Street. The
I,
interesting thing, Bill, is that I didn't want that taken away. I didn't want that taken away. As an act of reconciliation, I wanted a large boomerang was to be placed on where the Captain Cook statue was. So they can't blame me or any other Indigenous leaders for pulling it down, or even though we had different views. I'm still happy with Australia Day. We're definitely not going to change Australia Day, but I think this is discussions that needs to be made if we're going to see the closing the gap, and closing the gap is something that's very strongly on my heart. Also, the crime and the national security and anti-Semitism and the social cohesion. All these things are so important. And but I think and that's part of my platform that I'll be running. But I think these needs
well,
to come in.
just on that, I'll put up a screen share. Uh, on the screen now, you've got a list of 10 policies. You've got your website, which we'll put on our program as well, so people can go to your website. But you've got 10 main policies there, or things you want to look at. Fix the cost of living, anti-Semitism and social cohesion, better outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders.
Small business in the economy.
And the
I'm
economy.
I'm not hearing you, Bill. You somehow breaking up. Sorry.
That's probably one of the biggest failings of federal government, isn't it? Because education as well. Housing and homeless is another one. A healthy Australia. Reliable and affordable energy. Don't we all wish we had that? Crime and national security, keeping Australia safe. And sustainable migration program. So you cover a lot of areas there, but people can go and read that, and they can also get in contact with you in regards to a little bit of discussion on those. So you've got quite a comprehensive website.
Yes, that's right. And thanks, Bill, for sharing that. The other thing that I want to make a comment is the North Queensland state, and the idea of the state of North Queensland has been on the back burner for some time. And I believe, as I said, through this conversation, through what I've just mentioned about those two seats, Cook and Leichhardt, but I think this is the conversation. We need to see a North Queensland state here. In April 2019, during a Future Cairns seminar, Bernard Salt, Australia's leading demographer, was asked about a North Queensland state and said, while it was desirable, it would need about 1 million people to be viable. And it could be from Gladstone north to the tip of Cape York and would give us 1 million people. So it would be viable, especially with the wealth of industries that we have. And so that is in the chapter 6 of the Constitution that allows for a new state. And so, Bill, it will certainly be something that I'm pushing. I remember, if I'm talking to you in terms there of the football, the Broncos, the Queensland side was 1988, and then there was the fight, and North Queensland wanted a side up here. And after their perseverance, dedication, and commitment, they drove that. And now what we're seeing is that playing field where the North Queensland Cowboys have their home. And I'm also pushing for the North Queensland side, the women's side, to play on the fields here in Cairns. I know, Bill, it's just like the Queensland and New South Wales state of origin. There'll be a bit of a tug of war. So my questions there also would be, I'm pushing for this North Queensland state. I'm standing very, very strong. I think that certainly needs to happen. But who would have the, if I could say that word, the power rule of whether it's, with Cairns and Townsville, of the little bit of a tug of war here and there, where do you think, Bill, that reigniting this, and I believe in it, and I'm certainly going to make that stand and say I've got my hands up, and I will push it. I will push it to the extreme. So, where do you think the
Well,
out of the Cairns and Townsville, Bill? Who do you think that
well,
should?
you see, this is the problem. I come from Perth. I joined the Air Force at 15 as an apprentice, and in that group there was about 60 young men who had joined up from all over Australia. And one of the first things I really noticed about Queenslanders are how parochial you are in regards to your individual areas. Like the people in the outback, like Cloncurry and that, won't have anything to do with people in Mackay. Mackay won't have anything to do with people down in Rockhampton. Cairns and Townsville's always at loggerheads all the time. And the thing is, the Brisbane government's always known how to play us off against each other. So when it comes to a new state, I think it's quite simple. The Commonwealth's already drawn the border for us, and that's under the North Australian Infrastructure Facility, which includes Gladstone up and 49 LGAs. So we don't have to worry about the border. But when it comes to picking a new capital or something like that, I mean, the smart thing to do is, yes, it needs to be in North Queensland, but it doesn't need to be Rockhampton, it doesn't need to be Mackay, it doesn't need to be Cairns, and it doesn't need to be Townsville, because those cities already stand alone, strong service hubs anyway. We need to do what they do in the United States, like the capital of California is Sacramento. It's only a small town. The capital of New York State is Albany. It only has 95,000 people. So the last thing you want to do is to make one of those big towns already capital. It needs to be a greenfield site or something like that, and I don't care. If it had happened in colonial days, the capital would have probably been Charters Towers, because it had its own stock exchange. It had 103 pubs. So what a great place to be, eh?
Absolutely, Bill. And I think this is the time. This is the conversation that's needed. And look, I believe that there will be other people that will not only hear this, and they will say, yes, we're on board. I think history can be made.
I
And
think
I believe that history can be made, and I think this is a time now to start pushing it. So, Bill, I certainly will be pushing it, and certainly waving the flags from my end here. But in saying that, people always just ask me, saying, "Oh, okay, well, even though we've got a North Queensland rugby league side, you still follow the Broncos." you still support the Broncos. And all I could just say is, look, Brisbane did come into the competition in 1988, and I still have a love for the Cowboys, and I think there is that passion that's stirring even within yourself. I know it, I can see it, and when Barbara and I was from our last conversation that we had, something then, Bill, just reignited because the aim of this North Queensland state is to better the quality of life for citizens in regional Australia by greater representation, because we know in those populated areas like the Brisbane, they are so populated. But also one of the things that got us in was, when you're looking at um, greater seats of elections. Look, Bill, I put my hand up, but I see that if it's going to be a seed to say in time, in future, that this will bring about a greater representation of leaders that will be elected in that government arena. I say yes. I'm for it.
I
Um,
think the two big factors are with a separate state, and a lot of people give it a lot of thought to this, but the fact you get your own suite of senators. Like if we became if you get a new state, we would go from 6 to 7 states. Um, all the states will only have 10 senators. But you imagine North Queensland or Northern Queensland from Gladstone up having 10 senators representing their interest. Do you think they would get a much better deal and much more development with your own 10 senators who are looking after your interests? So that's the first thing. But it's go to also give development, and that's the key to moving forward, not just for everyone in Northern Queensland and Australia, but it's also to be a big push, a big advantage if you have that individual state pushing for development and what it's going to deliver to the Indigenous people as well. There's much more opportunity for them to participate because the focus is going to be on development and growth. And with development and growth comes advance, and advance for everyone.
Absolutely. And yes, to it, could give us their House of Reps like the 12 senators at Tasmania. I mean, can like there's a scripture that, Bill, that I will say, can anything good come out of far North Queensland? And we have to say yes. I think it could. And so I'm there. I'm there. We're in this together. So I'm there for you. For it.
Okay, Norman,
And
look, we've gone over
look,
the
the
hour.
other thing, the
But
other
if you
thing,
just
Bill,
like
is
to sort of just point out a few things as you go forward and any sort of meetings you're holding or help you need,
look,
appeals to the day.
yeah, just quickly, if I just throw this out, I do need volunteers to help, Bill. So if anyone can go on to that Norman Miller for Leichhardt.com, I'd be very, very grateful. The pre-polling kicks off next week. So I do need people that will be able to hand out the how to vote cards. If anyone is wanting, I've got T-shirts there as well. So anyone that would volunteer and helping out, if they could get in contact with me, give them my number, Bill. I've got T-shirts and they will get one. But also finances. We've just been a meeting. People have given small amounts here and there, but there's still a lot of costs that we personally need to cover. And people can go through, have a look at that GoFundMe.
Okay. In regards to there's 10 candidates, but I think one of the important things is going to be in regards to preferencing and things like that. Are you talking to the other candidates, especially from the miners and the other independents, in regards to preferencing and things like that?
Yes, I have been in discussions with when they did
Ballot draw.
The wheel just recently, last week over time,
Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune. And yeah, so I was able to speak to someone from the Trumps of Patriots, also uh, previously someone from the Qatar, someone from obviously Family First and LMP there as well. So preference is going to be very, very important. I don't know where I'll be. I was actually number eight on that. Um, I'll be number eight on that ballot bill. So it depends where other candidates from those parties will put me and I guess others there as well.
Okay, then. It sounds like a daunting task.
It
But
is.
it, but there again, it's a good warm up for the 2028 state election, which is going to be a doozy because we'll have a redistribution in the meantime, and we'll see Central and North Queensland lose two electorates. So I think the conversation about a separate state will be well and truly on the minds of most people, because we won't like the idea of losing representation in Parliament.
That's right. So I think with the focus for myself, and I know 3 years time and 2028, but I guess the focus for myself is where it is, and I certainly will be, as I said, the focus to see this North Queensland state come into play. Will play a major um, role. It's like this big new chapter of Australia, and I think people will be jumping up for joy. You can just start to just see it happening. I'm just aware when a football team scores a try, the whole, the banners and other things that go up, the clapping and the shouts and what do they call that? The Mexican wave and all those things there.
Right.
Uh, it can happen. It can happen, and it will happen. Just got to believe it. Like, you're a person of faith. I'm a person of faith to where I am today, and that's why I'm making the stand and I'm just so committed and dedicated and importantly, I've got my wife there that's close side by side, and she's helping me all the way, and so we're cheering each other on, Bill.
Okay, then. Look, I really like to thank you for your time tonight. Really, we'll be putting out as much information on our various Facebook pages about your campaign and your contact details, and I hope to catch up with you soon as well.
Okay, thank you, Bill, and to all your listeners, and no doubt we will catch up and have a coffee,
No worries.
maybe a meal together.
If you just hold the line there, I'll just introduce next week's show and have a little chat off air.
Okay.
Right. If you enjoyed tonight's show, please like, share, and subscribe to our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Next week, Wednesday, I'll be talking to Steve Andrew. Now, Steve was the member for Morani and the only member of Queensland Parliament for the One Nation Party from 2017 to 2024, before he was disendorsed. He ran as for the Catters in Morani and missed out by 600 odd votes. But he's turning out this time in the seat of Capricornia for the Trumpet of Patriots. So we'll have a discussion with Steve next week on the federal election and what's going on down in Capricornia. Thank you.